So in the last video, I taught you how we can take advantage of the query string to pass values around from page to page. But I also made a note that using the GET request should specifically be for retrieving data. If you're doing anything destructive, such as updating a database, you don't want to use the GET request. That can be insecure. So in this lesson, I'm going to teach you about using a POST request. So first, you might be thinking, well, how do we use POST? We know how to use GET through the query string, but with POST, how would we initiate something like that? And it's actually really easy. So I have created this new directory, $_post, and we have this blank index.php file. We'll create some HTML, and now let's create a form. And let's imagine we're creating some kind of contact form. So next, we're going to open up a form, of course. Now the action is going to be where we're going to direct to. In this case, I'm going to leave it blank because it's going to post to itself, but you could post to any page you want. We're just keeping it simple for now. Next, I'm going to set the method. The default will always be get, so let's keep it at get just for now. And within here, we'll just have a list of things that somebody needs to fill out to contact you. So I'll just add some information here. We'll have your name. That looks good, so let's run that. All right, so now we can view the source. We have this form. The method is get. It's going to post to itself. Now we need an actual submit button. So within here, let's just add an input with a type of submit, and I will give it a value of go. Run it one more time. All right, now we have this list. If I type my name, Jeffrey, and I click go, pay attention to the URL. So we're going to run it. It's going to reload the page, but now it's passed those values through the query string because we used the get method. Now, if we change it to post, we're not making potentially sensitive information available in the address bar. So now, one more time, let's remove all of that. Try it again. We will set the name to John Doe, and I run it, and now we have still posted it, but notice we haven't updated the URL. So how can we see what is within that post? Well, at the top, let me open up PHP. And if we were to simply do something like this, print r $_post, that would be okay on one condition. Let's reload the page. It's going to submit the form again. And we do get this array. It's the same thing as get, but now we're accessing the $_post superglobal. But watch, if I reload the page, that array is going to be empty, of course, because it hasn't been populated with anything. So we need some kind of way to determine whether or not this array is not empty, or, in other words, whether the form has been submitted. So I will show you two different ways. First, the easy way. We can say if not empty, post. And this is a new one that we haven't taken a look at yet, empty. Well, what does that do? Well, we switch over to php.net, and we can see it determines whether a variable is empty. And if we scroll down, we will see in this list here, these are the things that would be considered empty. Notice, just an empty array. All right, well, that's what we're going to use here. So now I'm saying if it's not empty, meaning there's something in it, then the form must have been posted. And then I will simply print r post once again. And now I can run it. Nothing happens because the form hasn't been submitted. I'll add my name. And now I submit it. We reload the page. This test runs again, and it does this test. Is the $_post superglobal empty? No, it's not empty, in which case we should run this. Let's try it. And sure enough, we do get that printed out. Cool. So that's one way you can do it. Another way would be to do it like this. We're going to run another if statement and say if $_server, and we're going to check the request method. And what that's going to do is simply echo out whatever the request method was, as you might guess. So for now, why don't we just echo this out? Echo $_server request method. I'm going to reload the page, and notice it's get. We've loaded this basic page. We performed the get request. But now we're going to perform a post. I run it, and now we get post. So that would be another way you can test it. I'll remove this if $_server request method equals post, then once again print r post. Run it one more time. We don't get anything, but we add a name, we run it, and now we're getting that same effect. Good. So let's add just a little bit more here. We have a section for the name. We should have some kind of section for the email, right? So let's do that. And then I will do one more, and this will be for the message. So label for message, your message, and this will be a text area. Now we run it, and that's a little bit sloppy. Let's add a break tag after that. Let's go to the top and add some styling. And we can actually get rid of that type equals text/CSS attribute. And for now, I'll say form list item, list style none to remove those bullets. And next, let's zero out any margin or padding that may be on the unordered list. Now, if I run it, that looks good. And the final thing, let's add some margin below the list items. All right, so that's a little bit better. So now we have a name section, we have an email, and we have a section for the message. So let's run this. Jeffrey Way, we'll do my Envato email address. This site is great. And now if I run that, notice that we only see the name as well as the email. But what about the message? And this is what you need to be careful about. You need to have a name attribute. So here we have input, it's name equals name. Notice that this value right here and here correspond to what you see here and here. So if I were to change this to your name and we run this one more time, notice that that has now been updated to your name. So that means it is required if you want that value to be sent through. So we'll say name equals message. Next though, just a little tip, when I click on the label, it should activate the input that it corresponds to. But in order to do that, you need to set an ID attribute rather than a name. And this is why you will often see, for example, name equals message, and then it will be repeated with the ID as well. So we will do that now. ID equals name, and then I will update this other one as well. So now if I reload the page, when I click on the labels, it'll activate the input that it corresponds to. Good. So now one more time, do our email. Hi there. And if I click go, now we have the name, the email, and the message, which is important. So at this point, we've taken the values that the user has provided us, and now we can use them however we need. Maybe you want to insert that into a database. Maybe you simply want to email that off. And that's what we'll do for now. You'd also want to do a bit of validation, but we're not to that point yet. Let's keep it as simple as possible while we are learning about posts. If I scroll to the top, we are determining whether the request method is post. Now we're going to prepare our email. And so how do we send an email? Well, let's refer to the documentation. PHP offers this function called mail, which is incredibly handy. So this is built in, and you can see you pass the values. Who is it going to? What is the subject of the email? What is the message? And then you can also pass additional headers, but we're not going to take a look at that just yet, because I will have a lesson dedicated to email. All right, so let's just fill these out. We're going to mail, and we'll just do this to my work account. What is next? We need to do the subject. All right, and we'll say new website message. And then finally, we have the message itself. So we will simply grab that out, post, and if you forget what the value is, just come back and look at what the name of the text area or the field that you want to grab the value from. So that is message. And that's it. But we should have some way to determine if the mail was sent. Well, this mail function will return that. If we take a look at the bottom, what is returned? It returns true if the mail was accepted for delivery. Now, like they say, it is important to note that doesn't necessarily mean it was delivered, but it's the best we can do for now. So now if I come back and we say if mail, then we can set some variable, maybe status equals thank you for your message. And of course, you would probably want to include the user's email address, stuff like that. You can do that on your own time, maybe as some homework, see if you can implement all of that into the email. But for now, this should be fine. So the final step is to alert the user. We will do that maybe right here below the form, and we'll say PHP if is set status, then we will echo status, something like that. All right, so let's run it. We're going to fill this information out, Jeffrey Way. Here's my message. And if I did everything correctly, once we post this form, it's just going to take my message and email it to them. And then again, as I noted, on your own, see if you can figure out how to integrate the name and the email into your message as well. So I'm going to click go. That's going to run. And there we go. Now we get thank you for your message because the page posted back, the status variable was set, and we echoed that. When I reload the page, the status variable will not be set, so we will not see it on the screen. So the final thing is that we are using the built-in mail server here. On Mac, it works fairly easily. With Windows, you may have to do some tinkering, so if you have some trouble, refer to the documentation or create a thread on the touchplus.com forums, and we will help you out as best as we can. So for some homework, I would like you to expand this. So right now, you'll also want to run this through HTML special chars, of course, but I want you to expand this method even further. So you will include the user's email as well as their message. Have some fun with it. If you have any questions, ask us on the Tuts Plus forums. My name's Jeffrey Way, and I'll see you later.